All right, so here's exact value. So this is where we're going to start using the reference angle of why we did it before. We're going to use the special triangle. The special triangle is going to be on a, like here it is in the MCAS sheet. So we'll use it down here in the bottom. Wherever we used the X's, you can replace them with ones. Because a lot of times in trig, either the ratios cancel out or we're on a unit circle, and sometimes we just say, hey, they can all be ones. So we really care about the 45 there being, the X being 1, the X being 1, and down, same thing with the Y's. So your ratio is going to be 1, 1 square root of 3, and 2. And so we'll talk about that when it comes up. And we're going to use the trig ratios that we've learned at the beginning of the year. So here's what's going to happen. We want to find the tangent of 300. So the assignment for this week is going to be the idea that most of them are between 0 and 360. So we'll do a couple that are different. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to find the reference angle. And so the first question is it between 0 and 360? And it is. So since it is between 0 and 360, I now know it's in the fourth quadrant. And when it's in the fourth quadrant, I subtract it from the nearest x-axis, which is going to be 360. So I'm going to subtract this from 360, and I get a reference angle of 60. So here's what we did. This, everything up to this point we've done before. This is where we're going to change a little bit. So now I have a reference angle of 60. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label it. So if I come back to this sheet for a second, I look at 60. Across from 60 is going to be y square root of 3. All right, so I'm going to just say square root of 3. Across from 30 is going to be 1, and across from the 90-degree angle is going to be 2. So I'm looking for opposite here. All right, so I'm looking for across from 30 is y. So across from 30 is 1. Opposite of 60 is square root of 3. And opposite of 90 is going to be 2. So I'm going to use that, and I'm just going to label it. So across from the 60, right? Across from the 60 is square root of 3. Across from the 30 will be 1. And here's my right angle, that'd be 2. Now the reason this is negative, if I'm imagining here's the origin, and I move to the right, that's positive. If I move down, that's negative. So here's positive, here's negative. So what's going to happen is now that's how it's labeled, and I want to find the tangent of that. Now the tangent we learned is the opposite over the adjacent. So the opposite is negative square root of 3. The adjacent is 1. So my answer is going to be negative square root of 3 over 1, or just negative square root of 3. Okay, so we look at this next one. All right, the circle's in radians, so we can ignore that for a minute. All right, the last one, yeah. So, sorry, zooming through for a second. So if I look at this for a second, I know this is going to be 360, this is going to be 90, this is going to be 180, and this is going to be 270. So if I start going through this, my first question is 1215 between 0 and 360? No. So I keep subtracting 360 until it is, and I eventually get 135. 135 is going to be in the second quadrant because it's between 90 and 180. I'm going to subtract it from 180 because it's the nearest x-axis. And now I have the triangle, which is going to be 45 degrees. So I come back to the sheet. I look at 45. Remember, everywhere I see a variable, I'm going to replace it with a 1. So across from 45 is 1, across from 45 is 1, and across from 90 is square root of 2. All right, so it's just labeling it. And some of that's come from geometry. We did that. A lot of that's from geometry. So if you haven't taken that part in geometry yet, it'll come up later on. So across from 45, right? Across from 45 is 1. Across from 45 is negative 1. And across from 90 is square root of 2. And again, the only reason this is going to be negative is because here's my origin. If I move to the left, that's negative. If I move up, that's positive. The hypotenuse is always positive. So now what I'm going to do is I want to find the sine of that. So since I want the sine of that, it's opposite over hypotenuse. So I want the opposite, which is 1. And I want the hypotenuse, which is the square root of 2. And so I'm going to get 1 over square root of 2. Now, here's going to be the problem. I can't have 1 square root of 2 as an answer. All right? So I can't have square roots on the bottom. So anytime there's square roots on the bottom or in the denominator, what I'm going to do to get rid of it is I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by square root of 2. Now, the reason I do square root of 2 is on the bottom, the square root of 2 and the square root of 2 is the square root of 4. And the top, 1 times square root of 2 is square root of 2. And the square root of 4, the square root of 4 is just 2. So now I get the answer is square root of 2 over 2. So this should be my answer. It's going to be square root of 2 over 2. They're exactly the same value, except one of the things we've learned from a long time ago. The proper way is we just don't have square roots in the bottom. So I'm going to make sure if anytime I have a square root in the bottom, I'm just going to multiply by whatever the square root is on the top and bottom. The reason I can do that is because, keep in mind, square root of 2 over square root of 2, they're the same. So I'm multiplying by 1. So when I multiply by 1, I don't change anything. So one more time, this bottom is square root of 2, times square root of 2 is square root of 4. Square root of 4 is 2. The shortcut in the future is these two things just cancel out and the inside just becomes my answer. And then the top is just 1 times square root of 2 is square root of 2. So feel free to ask me questions on that. Again, remember, it's not right or wrong that matters on the assignment this week. It's just, the attempt. All right. So same idea here. I don't know why this is showing up. So 360, 90, 180, and 270. So negative 510 is not between 0 and 360, so I keep adding until it is. And so I get 210, which is going to be in the third quadrant. I subtract it from 180, and I'm going to get 30. And so my reference angle is 30, and here's my triangle, right? So this is always going to be a right angle there. So now what's going to happen is from that sheet, right? So from the sheet, this is going to get rid of some of my things. So across from 30 is y, which is 1. Across from 60 is y square root of 3, which is square root of 3. And across from 90 is 2y. All right, so that's where it's coming from. So across from 30 is going to be 1. Across from the negative square root of 3, across from 60 is going to be square root of 3. And across from 90 is going to be 2. Remember, so here's my origin. Left, negative. Down, negative. Always positive. So this is my reference angle. That's why we do it. So this is my reference angle. I'm using this. So the opposite, right, is going to be over here. The adjacent's up here. And the hypotenuse is down here. So I want the adjacent over the hypotenuse, which is negative square root of 3 over 2. And so that's going to be my answer. Notice here I don't have to get rid of anything because the bottom is 2, not the square root of 2. So that's perfect for an answer, negative square root of 3 over 2. All right, so that's our attempt. See how you do. Feel free to let me know. This is going to be a little bit of a trouble, so don't feel bad if you need some help. Don't feel bad if you don't get it right away. It's just one of those things we have to kind of keep practicing. All right, good luck.